Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to a man who is living in a place that if we were talking about opposite ends of the world, we'd be pretty close, but also opposite ends of the temperature spectrum today because he was talking about clearing snow yesterday, and there's more snow to come, and he's sitting in an environment about minus 14 degrees Celsius, where I'm sitting in an environment today that's going to be plus 45 degrees Celsius. Coming in all the way from Toronto in Canada, Mr. David Fung, welcome to the podcast.
Darren, thank you very much for having me. And for translation for any American listeners there, minus 14 Celsius is just darn cold. Doesn't matter what the conversion is. It's just really, really, really cold at this point. With the wind chill is minus 27 degrees Celsius. I dug out of like close to 2 feet of snow. But I am jacked from lifting all that snow, Darren. I'm telling you.
And I guarantee you, when you popped into the Zoom, you dressed appropriately. So got the turtleneck, you're rugged up. It's you probably got the heater on, and here I am. I haven't turned the air conditioning on just yet, but got a fan behind me. And because for the American people listening to this today in Melbourne, 113 Fahrenheit, which is hot.
That is hot. Well, good luck there.
Thank God for the pool. I will be jumping into the pool a few times today. I can absolutely guarantee it. So, David, welcome to the podcast. CEO and executive coach at Coachful Coaching, leadership coach at the Leadership Intensive. Plus, and we'll delve into your background as well. You've spent over 20 years at Salesforce, running sales engineering teams. And now you're an ICF accredited coach and doing all great things in leadership. So, looking forward to this conversation. Where did it start for you, my friend? Where was it that that led you down the path of leadership, but then led you to do what you do today in terms of working with executive leaders?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the introduction, Darren. So, what led me into leadership? Well, I'll tell you that after 20 plus years in the tech industry, I spent approximately half of that as an individual contributor, the other half as a leader. And I could tell you that a couple times along the way, I've had great managers, great leaders who asked me various questions, as in like, "Hey, we're opening up an office in New York City. Would you like to move there? Chicago, would you like to move there? San Francisco, would you like to move there?" And each time it was, "No, thank you. I have a family here. My friends are here. I'm good." So that's number one. Number two is that I've been asked several times as well, "Hey, Dave, maybe you want to consider leadership." And I could tell you each time I said, "I'm good. I need," and the reason why I said I'm good and I don't want to yet was I felt as an individual contributor, there was a lot of things I still wanted to accomplish. And that's the thing, is when I have, especially folks who are on the verge of going from IC to leadership, they ask, "Well, is that the logical next step?" And one of the things I say, well, I didn't. And the reason why was I felt I had a lot more to accomplish, a lot more president's clubs I wanted to attend, and a lot more deals I wanted to be, helping the business win before I even dabble on that side of things. So yeah, but then it clicked at some point. I've always loved teaching. I'd always loved coaching. I loved mentoring. I really loved the aha part of leadership. And that was my transition, I don't know how many years, almost a decade now, saying, "You know what? It's time, Dave. Time to go into leadership." So that was my aha moment. And I had to trudge through that.
So was it it sounds like that was more of an evolution rather than a revolution, where you probably had opportunities to move into a leadership role a number of times, but you weren't quite ready. When did you know you were ready? Had it been, there's something I'd now accomplished pretty much everything that I wanted to accomplish, and there was something more that I wanted to do, but did it become more about the coaching element, the teaching element that you referred to there, that, now is the right time? And how do you know it was the right time?
So the best way to know if you are can even hang with some of the best in the next role that you take is you got to have dabbled in it. You got to
Mm.
have done some of that role. So even as an individual contributor, especially in my senior years at my last company. So I worked at my last company was a company called Salesforce. It's software company located out of the Bay Area of United States, and I was out of the Toronto office, but I was running a North American team. And when I think about like, okay, time to go to leadership. Leadership is this thing um, I was doing even as an individual contributor, right? People came to me because I was told like I cared, like I
Hmm.
truly cared for the well-being of my teammates. That was the biggest thing. That's what a lot of my managers saw in me. I truly cared for people. I vouched for people. I fought for them as well as an individual contributor, right? That's something a manager usually does. That's something
Yeah.
that IC would say, "Oh no, I'm not a manager. It's none of my business." I did it, right? And I loved, bringing on new people onto the team and mentoring them and seeing them grow.
Mm.
And one of my leaders says, I thought like it was all about hitting these quotas, hitting these numbers and such. And I had good leadership, fortunately, and they said, Dave, that that stuff, you know how to do your job. That'll take care of itself. The soft side of it, I can't teach you. It is so hard to teach the soft skills related to leadership. And that he goes, you got it. There's still things you gotta fix up, but you got this. And that's why, I had the aha moment like, oh, I'm already doing leadership.
Yeah.
So that started my journey going full force into it.
So it's an interesting take because in Salesforce, I'm really curious because my background's in telecommunications and ICT. So worked for the two biggest telco organizations in Australia. And a lot of sales leaders are placed in a sales leadership role because they've been that fantastic individual contributor. So the sales director looks at them and says, you know what, David, you're a great performer. I reckon if we can get more people like you, then we're going to have a team that's unstoppable. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you into a sales leadership role. We're not going to give you
Hmm.
any coaching or mentoring to help you make that transition because the skill sets are different, but you'll work it out. But
Yeah.
go manage the team and get the results, and everything's going to be happy. You said something really interesting before, and that is you dabbled in it. So, can you talk about your preparation time? Because a lot of people are thrust into a leadership role and they're not probably ready for it, nor do they have the competency or the emotional intelligence to take on the responsibility. What was it that you were preparing? Because you said you were doing a lot of coaching and mentoring anyway, that enabled you, at least in yourself, to feel more comfortable being able to make that transition because it's not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. When you think about the competencies of a good leader or a great leader is number one, how you take care of the people. Okay. So your team above the chain of command and below the chain of command, how you partner with your business partners, right? So it's not just about Dave Fung. It's not just about me. It's how do I partner across the business? And okay, pause there for a second. So I might think I'm a great partner, but how do other people experience my partnership with
Mm,
them? If I work with people in marketing, in customer service, customer success, right? How do they experience my partnership, right? And then the last thing is you got to know how to do the job, right? The performance,
mm,
right? So, especially in sales, but this applies to any field you're in, whether it's customer service, customer success, marketing, it doesn't matter. Can you perform well in this job at scale? So those are the three P's: the
mm.
people, the performance, of the partnership. If you can do those three P's well, right, that makes you a great leader.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Those are the what's. How you do those things, how you work through others, how you scale through others is that's the secret sauce,
Mm.
right? And there's a lot of crap out there in LinkedIn and Instagram and if it was so easy to learn leadership in 15 to 30 seconds, wow, I honestly I'd no string theory by now, right? Um, But the fact is that it is an art, it is a science, and it takes years and years and years and years of open-mindedness and feedback and learning.
Mm.
Um, and and one funny comment I would say is like you say like in sales especially, oh, Darren, great, you've knocked it out of the park for the last 6 quarters. You know what? I'm going to promote you to regional vice president. You're going to lead this team now. Guess what? You become a super account executive. You know, you know exactly what I mean. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, I'm in charge of 9 people. I guess I have 9 territories now. Well, that's completely wrong. That's the wrong the wrong performance.
And that's the danger because I see this happen a lot, and I'm sure you do as well, that the super salesperson gets thrust into that leadership position because they've been such a great contributor. And they don't understand that their primary role is to enable and empower their team, not to do the things for them. And
Mhm.
they can become that super sales rep that they ride in on that white horse and they save the day, they get the deal. From the company point of view, they're happy because the deal's done and the company wins. But from a culture point of view, you're starting to teach them that, oh, when the proverbial hits the fan, David's going to ride in on the horse and save the day, right? And
Yep.
so you start to develop this codependency type relationship, which is not a recipe for long-term leadership success.
Yeah, Darren, if I had a nickel or whatever the exchange rate is to the Australian dollar, right? Like if I had a nickel for every time someone was promoted to a second line or third line sales leadership role, and it's because they're a great closer. Wow, they're a great closer. They're a great negotiator, great at contract terms. Well, like, is that and unfortunately that's the perceived value that a lot of people bring, right? And that is a cultural thing. I'm not saying that that's something that could be changed overnight, but I would argue that when in any of these roles, I would challenge, and I've been on these panels where we're hiring, sales leaders. The thing I would challenge them on is how they would scale their success, right? Okay, fine. I know you haven't been a sales leader yet, but what does your intuition tell you?
Mm,
What does your intuition tell you about how you would leverage your team to scale the success
mm,
that you've had? And just for a hint for people listening out there, I'm listening for mentoring, coaching. I'm listening for sharing best practices. Continuous growth, setting standards, right? That's what I'm listening for, right?
mm.
Not I know the answers. It's
Yeah.
how you would do that intuitively. So I see you nodding there, Darren. It sounds like some lived experiences here.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it, that I mean, everything you're talking about makes perfect sense, and yet it's not necessarily what we see day to day, because unfortunately, still in 2026, there are still leaders that are thrust into positions and they're simply not ready for it. They've been a great individual contributor, and and their idea of coaching and mentoring is pretty much telling people what to do. And they think,
Mhm.
well, I'm a great coach. I just tell Dave what to do, and he does it, and he gets the results, so it makes me a great coach. No, no. So
Mhm.
what happens, Dave, when you're not there? Does your team know what to do? Have you taught them the principles? Have you taught them the values? Have you
Yeah,
taught them about what leadership actually is?
there was a leader on my team who said it best. Like, honestly, I did feel guilty at one point again, if I'm talking to Australians and Europeans out there, they're like, "What the hell's wrong with you North Americans?" I was taking 2 weeks straight in the summer of off time, well deserved. I've never done that in my 20 something year career. I did it, and I was a little bit nervous and a little bit guilty, if I was to be very honest, Darren. Um, but one of the leaders on my team, he says, Dave, there's a CEO of Athena Health, it's a EMR company in out of the US, and that CEO said, if I can't step away from the business for 30 days and have it continue to run well, I haven't done my job
That's
as
it.
CEO. And that's the reality. If I can't step away from the business for this is like 10 working days
Mm,
and without things falling apart, I ha- I haven't done my job. And the reality is my team, like I came back from vacation. The team handled everything. Like
Yeah.
it was a very, and I got comments from some folks like saying, Dave, you have a really strong team. And by the way,
Yeah.
I am proud of that. Nowadays, I am proud of saying I built very, very strong teams,
Mm.
right? Um, at the time, I was probably a little less like, I was like, oh, is that, should I be doing that? But no, I'm very proud. I built very strong teams, very autonomous teams who they can handle really tough stuff,
Mm.
right? And work together to handle very tough things.
Yeah.
Um, and so I could have been away for a month, um, and it would have been absolutely fine.
And ideally, that's what you want to be. You want to be in a position where, to use a term we often use in Australia, and I say this to a lot to sales leaders, your job is to make yourself redundant. And when people hear that word redundant, they think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. No, no, it means that what you've just said, you've built a team where they've got independent of thought. They know what needs to be done. They've already set the standards because you've set the example, and the team doesn't need you to do the day-to-day operational stuff because they know exactly what to do. It actually, as you were talking there, David, it reminded me of when I made the transition from one of the companies to a new one many years ago. 9 months in, I decided to take a holiday because I'd got enough leave and take my wife and my kids to Queensland, right? It was
Hmm.
north of Melbourne, just for a vacation. And I said to my boss, I'm going to leave my phone, I'm going to leave my laptop at home. And he turned around to me, and up until that point, I had the desire to be a director, an executive director within the company because I loved what he represented. Everything changed the moment he said this to me. And he goes, Darren, are you saying that you're going to abandon the business? And at that moment, I thought, okay, now I know what game I'm playing here. This is not about great leadership. This is about getting the number and doing everything to make sure the fire is burning for the business. Right. So if I can't take that time away without me having to connect and keep across all these deals, then something is fundamentally wrong. And that's the day
Yeah.
I actually changed my
Hmm.
complete trajectory, which has ended up doing what I do today, which is similar to
Hmm.
coaching, mentoring, training, and also
Yep.
podcasting. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just nuts. And people don't still don't get it. They still don't get it. They think that they are the ones, they're the catalysts to drive the team. They're not.
It's interesting. It and I don't have an answer to this, Darren. Um, it's interesting what happens to the psyche and to psychology of individuals when there's money on the line,
Mm,
and there's a lot of money on the line. Um, because on one hand, I like, we're preaching and talking about this, and I truly believe what we're saying, the this side of things of leadership. On the other hand, I have a lot of empathy and compassion for businesses that are, quite frankly, like my last company, even though it was reported every quarter to the street, um, it was run like a weekly basis, right?
mm,
Like forecasting, like Salesforce, I have to say, one thing I learned there was what sales rigor looks like.
yeah.
I've worked for a number of companies, and many people have come from many other companies that says, "Oh, I've worked in demanding jobs. I've worked in demanding sales jobs." They had their asses handed to them coming to the Salesforce. There was it is a very tough job for salespeople there.
Mm,
Um, I feel for them, a lot of compassion for them. And so when you have individuals coming out of there who can hit their numbers, find a way every quarter, to get at least close to their quota, and still retain that sense of like humanity,
mm.
for around their team, for other business partners, for people around them. um, I I have so much love for those individuals, and I'm still great friends with a lot of those individuals who, like literally, I know how much money they made in their
Yeah,
careers.
yeah,
Okay, a lot.
yeah.
Um, they're the most humble people you would never know by looking at
Mm.
them. What they've done, and they're great people. They've been great to me and great to a lot of my friends. So,
So with that, because one of the things that we understand in sales is there's always a quota, there's always a target, and it always increases, it never goes down. So sales
yes.
teams and sales leaders are always under this constant wave of either direct or implied pressure to get things done, to hit the quarterly target, hit the monthly target, hit the yearly target, hit projections,
Hmm.
all that sort of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your experience, maybe through the Salesforce days, but also what you've learned since working with executive leaders in terms of leading under pressure?
Yeah.
And this is where we've got to think clearly. So, and often it's this, and I often bring in Simon Sinek around this in terms of the finite versus the infinite games. On the one hand, yes, we have to hit the targets because that's I guess, the notification of, are we winning? Are we making progress in on the scoreboard? But equally, we've got to bring in sustainability. And if we've got good people, how do we create an environment where we can still drive high standards and high performance, but not
Yeah.
necessarily put the pressure that's now going to be a case of, oh shit, I'm now going to look at how do I protect myself over the next month?
Yeah. Well, look, um, working in a high performance job, demanding jobs. Sales is one example. There is many other jobs out there. First responders out there, like et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But let's take sales because we're talking about sales here. Imagine you're driving from home to work. Okay. And you know how to drive, right, Darren? I know how to drive. Now, someone red light turns, someone runs across the street, you hit the brakes. Okay, cool. And then let's say most of the drive back, it's okay, right? Your heart rate probably just raises a little bit. But let's just say you're just going really fast down the street, and every 100 meters or so, a dog, a cat, a human runs into your path, right? Your heart rate is just shooting up, going down, shooting up, going down. And by the time you get to work in that situation, you are amped up, you are on edge, you're freaked out, right?
Mm,
And yet your destination is still the same. So I use that metaphor because how how you present those surprises, what is considered a surprise, what is considered guesswork for your team from point A to point B, that's going to determine how stressed they get.
mm,
So the best leaders are able to guide their team from point A to point B, not with no stress, but with as little guesswork as possible. So let me explain, right? High pressure. It's coming down from, the CEO, right? There's a lot of demands. Oh, we're going to be short this quarter. Well, I need to squeeze another like 100K out of each of you, right?
mm,
That could be a surprise, right? But you can dampen that surprise and just edge it slightly lower by explaining the why, you know, what it means to you. Like, yes, Darren, I need another 100K out of you this quarter. I
mm,
know I know it's going to be difficult. I know you might not know where to find it. Can we work together to find some creative ways to find that additional 100K? You hear that, right?
yeah.
Now, contrast that with Darren, we're going to shit the bed if you don't find another 100K, okay? If you don't find it by in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about a pip. How's that? I mean, look, they don't use those exact words, but it doesn't take a genius to understand what's implied, right?
Yeah.
With the tone. And so, when we're saying leading under pressure is lead lead with clarity.
Mm,
Lead with clarity. Clear is kind, is what people say,
yeah.
right? Clear is absolutely kind. And so if you can lead with clarity, you're really fulfilling three psychological needs of every human being. So, and I go back to this a lot when I talk on podcasts is, you know, the every single human being, they have three needs. They need autonomy, they need competence, they need connection.
Mm,
All right. So those are three psychological needs for people to thrive, for
mm-hmm,
people to be motivated. It doesn't matter who you are. That is how you thrive. So autonomy is, do I have a choice in this? Do I have some semblance of control? You're able to do that, to give people some semblance of control, even if it's a surprise news like, hey, I need another 100K from you, Darren. Well, gi- give that person control.
mm,
Help them find the control over that 100K. Autonomy, right? The competence. Like, do I know how to do this?
mm,
Right? Can I figure out like, do I have the competence to do this? Well, this is where the coaching and mentoring comes in. Like, Well, here's some ways that have worked for me in the past. Here's some, things we can do in order to up the numbers for yourself this quarter,
Mm,
right? And then finally, the connection, right? It's connection is really about, Darren, do I trust you? Darren, do you trust me?
mm,
Do you feel I have your best interests in mind in this whole thing, right? Those are the three needs. This is scientifically proven, right?
mm.
Autonomy, competence, connection. Every single human needs, right? And so when you're talking about leading under pressure again, right? That clarity you provide to one of your employees, you fulfill those three psychological needs.
And does that give you the ability then? Because you also talk a lot about influencing without authority. And I see a lot of
Mhm.
sales leaders, when they get into the sales leadership role, they almost have this complete metamorphosis. And I wouldn't say it's the caterpillar into the butterfly, it's probably something nastier than that.
Mhm.
But they tend to lead through command and control, and they don't
Mhm.
necessarily focus on the competency, the autonomy, and the connection. They just say,
Yeah.
get this done or else.
Yep. Yeah. Um, Look, this is why I say like I have a lot of compassion and empathy. Um, because when there's an edict coming from up high saying you got to hit this number or else, you read between the lines, right? Like
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of those emails you have in your career.
yeah,
Like, okay, but how things are communicated is so important,
yeah.
right? And number one is like when you're communicating that, the clarity, like the why behind it, like explain why.
Mm,
That builds the trust. That
yeah,
trust is the connection,
yeah.
right? Right. And this doesn't take the stress away, but it does lower the stress
Mm,
by a lot, right? But when you trust someone, it's like, okay, my boss has my best interest in mind. They are trying to help me through this. I'm not out on my own, right? Um, the other thing is like, you know, helping people understand, like, if you want to have influence, is like, if you're the one speaking, connection is important, but
yeah,
also, do you have credibility?
yeah.
So, we talked about like you're a great you were a great salesperson. Well, if you were a great salesperson before you became a leader, help me out, man.
Yeah.
Right? Show me you can actually mentor me and teach
Mm,
me how to
mm,
do some of this stuff. That credibility is very important.
yeah.
That's why I tell folks like take your time being an IC because you need to know how to do the jobs of the people in the front line. If you
Mm,
can't, it is so hard. There's only so much coaching you can do and ask them questions stuff. If you don't understand the job they do, it's going to be very difficult for you as a leader, right? And
yeah.
then the final thing, like when you're influencing people, so there's connection, you got to have credibility as well. The final thing is how you're like when you're communicating, are you relevant
Mm,
with them? And what I mean by that is, are you explaining things and communicating to them in terms that they understand, in metrics that matter to them,
yeah.
in feelings that matter to them? That's relevance.
Mm,
So influence without authority, I've broken it down to like a three-part formula, right? Connection, credibility, relevance.
yeah.
And that's why I teach people.
Yeah. And that's where your emotional intelligence comes in as well, because not everybody's going to relate to you the way you normally communicate. So you've got to understand, how do I best develop credibility with people who maybe see things slightly different to me or who have a different way of going about doing things? I've got to still be able to build a connection with them and adapt my style to them so that I can be more
Mhm.
relevant, so I can establish credibility. When I do that, I build levels of trust. But a trust has to be genuine, because the other thing that your team want to know is that you're there for them, that you are there to serve them. They are not there to serve you. And I think
Mhm.
that's where a lot of sales leaders fall, and not just sales leaders, by the way, a lot of leaders fall into the trap of, when they get the leadership position, and it probably comes back to what you said before, David, they maybe haven't spent enough time as an individual contributor to understand what it's like to be that. So when they get into the role, they've now got the leadership role. I don't have to be an individual contributor anymore. I'm going to tell people what to do. So they haven't established that level of credibility, and it's hard. It's hard for them.
It's amazing. You could have been the most kick butt individual contributor. right? And you could be promoted to managing the exact same team that you were on. But guaranteed, like within the year, you will get dumber on the how, right? It's just, the technology advances, the
Yep.
processes advance, the nuances of the customer relationships will evolve. You'll get
Yeah.
dumber in some
Yeah.
way, right? So don't get too dumb. Don't get too dumb.
Well, it also begs the question then, we don't want to, as a sales leader, we don't want to be doing the super rep thing. We don't want to be doing deals for the team, but we still need to stay involved. And this is the other thing I find really interesting that often sales leaders, when they get into that role, they spend the most of the time, generalization I know, forecasting, managing upwards, and
Hmm.
not near enough time in the field, in the trenches, coaching, mentoring, working with it, and not doing it for them, but staying relevant to them so we can continue to build that connection, that competency, that autonomy, and the
Yeah,
credibility. Um,
yeah,
how important is that from a sales leadership perspective for you to stay in the trenches, not doing things for
yeah,
them, but be there?
yeah. It's the thing that leaders struggle with the most is when they like, let's take the most common role is first line leader, right? You are a leader managing, a number of individual contributors, right? And you go to a sales call, and your question is in your own mind, what's my role here now? What is your role?
Mm,
Well, that is a very tough question, right? For a lot of folks. And there is no one size fits all, right? And that I would encourage you to work with your sales rep, right, to determine like what role they want you to play. But what I've seen very effective is as a sales leader, you elevate yourself,
mm,
right? You're an exec. You got to think of yourself. I'm not just a first line leader. I'm an executive now, right? Coming here. I bring the broader vision. I bring the broader, the broader know-how, the broader understanding of the industry itself and what is going on in this customer's industry and what's happening with their competitors. Bring that broader level, right? And I would argue even be somewhat of the good guy,
mm,
right? Because guess who's the one who's going to be hounding your customer on almost daily basis? It's the sales rep,
mm,
right? So you need good cop, bad cop, right? The good cop needs to be the sales leader, right?
mm.
You cannot play the bad cop. If both you're a bad cop, you're not getting that deal at the end of the quarter, okay, or at the end of the year. Okay,
Yeah.
one of you needs to be that elevated leader up here who is um, playing the good cop, who is bringing the broader vision, and when it is time to like close that deal, at the end of the quarter, you have that relationship with people higher up who
Mm,
have that power, so that you can align with them, so that you bring this thing to a close. So it is somewhat of an art. There is no single way to do it right. But that's the mindset and frame of mind I would challenge sales leaders to think in terms of.
I love that. I love that. And it's knowing that role intimately, but having the flexibility to be able to I mean pull different levers when you need to, but be consistent, particularly when it comes to the customer facing work as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I wanted to we talked a little bit before we press record, and you're big on this thing called joyful. And you talk about people say, well, yes, your name is Fung, but there's also FUN in that, which is all about having fun. Can you
Yeah.
talk about your philosophy around joyful leadership? And because when you think about people in sales, yes, it's a high pressure environment. Yes, it's also quite a rewarding environment, particularly when you can go to things like President's Club. But what's your thoughts on having fun in the environment as a leader, how to create the environment which is light, which is joyful? And if I can ask, what's your definition of joy or joyfulness within the corporate context?
Yeah. I don't think I've settled on one final end all be all definition. But the one thing I can tell you is that for those listening out there, my last name is Fung, Fung. In order to spell Fung, you got to spell fun. Now, for all of the folks who've worked with me for years, they know that old joke. If you haven't heard that joke, it's your first time. Well, you can keep it. It's for free. Okay. That's my lead magnet to all of you. Um, when I think about like I can't, I don't think the corporate environment needs to be different from any other environment, like with friends in a personal setting,
Yeah.
when it comes to feeling joy. Joy is something that you know you're feeling, right? You're overall content. It doesn't mean and for those out there who are trying to avoid being sad, avoid being stressed, first of all, shame on you. Okay, you're not living life. Okay, being joyful and happy doesn't mean it's the absence of stress and the absence of sadness. Having joy is knowing, um, it's knowing when things are great. It's not, cool, right? And when things are not that great, cool, right? You know, uh, um, some people call that whatever that big word is. I can't think of it right now, right? But it's just being even keel, right?
Yeah.
Celebrate when things are great, cry when things are bad. But you know what? Things are never as great as it seems, and things are never as bad as it seems.
Mm.
That's one big piece of business advice I was given by a mentor early on in my career is don't take the highs too high, don't take the lows too low,
Mm.
right? That's in life and that's in, work. It's okay, right? You hit your number, great. Don't celebrate too hard, right? Because, tomorrow's a new day. You
It
don't
is.
hit, yeah, you screwed that deal. Okay, it's okay, right? Like we'll come back and fight another day, right?
Yeah.
And so it's someone who has the self regulation to bring that mindset. That is when you can experience joy, right? Now, I really am being very careful not to be too woo woo here, right? And metaphysical. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm very practical, but I guess as you age, as I've aged, um, I'm really 85, Darren. Okay, I just look pretty young.
You're looking
But
good
as
for
I've aged,
85, David.
I know. But as I've aged, I've understood that it all just comes back to understanding yourself and how you react to things.
Yeah.
And so, and come on, we know in sales, we we party hard, man. We
Mm.
know that. I've been out very late, many, 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 many nights. Um, but it's okay. So like your mindset is very, very important. That said, as a leader, you have a responsibility to create conditions that are
Mm.
joyful for your team. Okay. And for all those who are hard charging and need to hit their quota out there, that doesn't go away. You should absolutely have high standards, exceptional standards that you hold yourself as well as to your team to. But when I say joyful, um, number one is it's okay for you to bring uh, some fun
Yeah.
into the calls that you have, to bring your personal side. That's the connection. So
Mm.
remember those three psychological needs of every
Yeah.
single human being, especially when the pressure is high. Those three psychological needs, autonomy, competence, connection, become even more important,
Mm.
right? It has to be consistent. So the connection, right? Like, hey, yeah, this is going to suck, guys. By the way, and just have a conversation with folks, that connection, right? Um, Bringing joy is like when people feel that they're in control, Darren, right? They feel like they have some semblance of control.
Mm.
Back to that 100K. I need another 100K from you this quarter. Um, well, give them some sense of control. How can you give that to them? How can you
Mm.
provide that to them? Well, help them understand
Mm.
what they know about their business, help them understand what they can find, where they can find this. That's the coaching, right? And then the competence, right? Like some folks might just be blocked,
Mm.
for that very moment because they're freaking out. Help them understand they actually have the answers. If they
Yeah.
don't, help them or find someone else who can help them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's my definition of joy. Bringing those three psychological factors, autonomy, competence, connection, right? despite all the pressures
Mm.
that are happening. I know it was a long-winded answer. I will find a very short version of it very soon for you, Darren. Right? Um, but
No, I really
yeah,
I really like that because there's a lot of corporate environments that are just high pressure and there's no fun. And you walk into these environments and it feels like you can cut the tension with a knife. There's
yeah,
just this feeling that you get, and everything's just do this, do this. It's all about do.
yeah,
And they don't necessarily understand or try to create what's the fun we're having, what's the joy we have in this particular moment. It's just the fact that we're here doing this. What are the things we can actually control, and what are the things we have no control over? But what we do have control over is the choices we have in terms of the response we put out there. So what can we
yeah.
do, right?
And I challenge the leaders who are listening out there in any field to think of it this way: is that it's not your job to make things fun. It's not your job to be fake and be happy when things are stressful. It
Yeah.
is your job, is your responsibility to be transparent.
Mm,
It is your job and responsibility to be honest with people, but it's also your job and opportunity to see where you can connect more with people
mm,
and you can help them feel the autonomy and up their competence
yeah.
in those moments of pressure.
Yeah.
That is your responsibility.
And often that is by the leader rolling up their sleeves and getting involved, not doing things for them, but at least creating the environment where the team knows and genuinely feels that, hey, we're in this together, right? Because there are too many organizations and teams that have the individual contributors as a team, and then you got the leader, but it's almost this us and them type of mentality. And one of the reasons for that is there's this separation physically sometimes between the leader and the team because the leader's spending too much time away from the team and not creating that level of fun. So often you've got the individual contributors sitting there thinking, geez, I wonder what David's doing right now. Oh, he's in another management meeting. He's in another strategy meeting. Well, why isn't he spending time with us?
Because there's too many damn strategy meetings. That's for another podcast, right?
That
It's
is,
like
it is.
why are we doing this now? Um, and I understand it's hard not to get a little bit frustrated when you're like, wait, yet another strategy meeting?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
happened to the last one?
exactly. That's been superseded because there's been another edict come down. We've got to now create another one. It's the idea of the month. So, David,
Ice cream flavors.
have loved this conversation. I just wanted to, you've actually followed a fairly similar path to myself when I'm listening to you speak.
Hmm.
I'd like you to, as we come to a close, I'd like you to address the person listening to this who perhaps right now is an individual contributor, but they've had some thoughts around, you know what, there's something more. I want to be able to give more. I think I want to explore this discipline of leadership. I
Hmm.
think I can do more. Are there some key insights and experiences or key principles from your own experience in making that transition that you like to leave them with as a thought prompter to make that transition a little bit more seamless, if you like, if that's something they want to do?
Yeah. So a couple things I'll leave you with is first of all the three P's, right? Is as a leader is how do you manage how do you lead the people? How do you lead the business's performance? And how do you partner
Hmm.
with others? Um, I will add a fourth P, right? Is the perception of you by others. And when I say perception, I mean how do others experience you,
Hmm.
right? And I say that because it's important that you get an objective point of view of how others experience your leadership and not blowing smoke up up your nose, right? But truly find the harshest critics you have, right? How are they experiencing how you drive performance? How do they experience how you drive partnerships? And how do the people around you experience you as a leader, the
Mm.
people? And that is going to give you a good baseline on where you need to start, right? It is not truth, it is a starting line. And from there, that's where you have an opportunity to develop yourself.
Love
Three
that.
plus one P.
Love that. We'll call them the 4 Ps or the 3 plus 1 Ps.
Yeah, because I thought
People,
of the fourth one.
that's cool. People, performance, partnering with others, and perception of you by others. I love that because John Maxwell often talked about or talks about the fact that, and he'll ask questions of people, what is it like to be on the other side of my leadership? Which is
Hmm.
it's a great way of saying what you just said in terms of what's the perception of you by others, because we all have our own perception of what we think and what we're trying to put out, but it might be completely different to what the actual experience is of
Yep.
others of us.
Yes. Yes. And I would leave one last thing to the folks who are listening. And it is a scary thing to ask for feedback,
Mm,
especially from people you know who will be your critics.
yeah,
I would challenge you, invite you to do it anyways. Because if this is tough, yes, get through it because
yeah,
it only gets tougher from there.
yeah.
And that's
Love it.
about it. That's all I
Love
have
it.
to say.
Love it. What a great way to wrap up what's been a great podcast. So thank you. For people listening to this, David, who'd like to reach out to you and connect, learn more about what you do, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yep, it's coachfulcoaching.com. I also have a podcast, Coachful Coaching Leadership Podcast. Maybe you can share the notes
Yep.
with folks. And on LinkedIn, you'll find me, David Fung. So as well as on Instagram.
Awesome. I will put all of that in the show notes. So terrific. Hey, David, all the way from Toronto in minus 14 degrees Celsius weather. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Well done. Keep up the great work, and yeah, keep leading joyfully, and keep being awesome in what you do. So it's great to have you on the podcast today, my friend.
I appreciate it, Darren. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.